Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast once again. This is episode 130, entitled Personality Types, Finding the Right Client for You. And it's a discussion, so we'll be speaking later with David Wormsley from davidwormsley.com. It was published on Thursday the 30th of May 2019. My name's Nathan Wrigley from pictureandword.co.uk, and a couple of things just before we begin. If you wouldn't mind going over to the wpbuilds.com website and looking at the menu items across the top. The first one is the subscribe link, and if you click on that you'll be taken to our subscribe page, and really it's just a page where we're hoping that you'll want to get involved in the WP Builds community. You can sign up for a couple of newsletters which have different purposes. You can join our Facebook group. You can find out about signing up on iTunes or Google Podcasts, and our YouTube channel, and so on and so forth. So basically it's just a page. If you'd like to hear more from us and you think that our content has in some way enriched your life, then please go to that page and fill out one of the forms or click some of the buttons. The next one to mention is wpbuilds.com/deals. That's a page where we post loads of deals. We've been reached out to by lots of plugin developers and theme developers, and they've given us a whole load of discounts which we're passing on to you. So it might be 15% off Lifter LMS or 20% off Project Huddle, or, well, there's about 15 or 20 up there at the moment, so go and check them out if you're in the market for some WordPress plugins at the moment. Another one to mention, wpbuilds.com/contribute. If you've done something recently and you think to yourself, I'm proud of that, I was pleased with the way that turned out, then please get in touch and I'll share my screen with you and we'll shoot a little podcast, and in that way we might be able to share your amazing inspiration with a slightly wider audience. And also wpbuilds.com/advertise if you would like to advertise on the wpbuilds.com podcast or newsletter so that we can get your product out in front of a wider audience. And speaking of which, the WP Builds podcast is brought to you today by the Page Builder Framework. Do you use a page builder to create your websites? Well, the Page Builder Framework is a mobile responsive and lightning fast WordPress theme that works with Beaver Builder, Elementor, Breezy and other page builders. With its endless customization options in the WordPress customizer, it's the perfect fit for you or your agency. Go to wp-pagebuilderframework.com today. And we do thank our sponsors because they do help us support and create the WP Builds podcast. Just one more thing to mention. On a Monday, we're now doing a live news bulletin. So the podcast episode that we put out on a Monday, which is a summation of the previous week's WordPress news, we're now doing a live episode of that on a Monday. So if you're in our Facebook group or on our YouTube channel, then at 2 p.m. UK time, that will be rolled out live. And we'll obviously put links to it in our social media platforms. Okay, today we're discussing the subject of personality types and finding the right client for you. This is really David's area of expertise. He has a background in psychology, and I've got literally no knowledge of this whatsoever, but it was absolutely fascinating filling out a survey, finding out what type of personality I am, and then whether or not this has any impact on the way that I behave or deal with clients. You know, should I behave in a certain way, having kind of made a decision about what their personality type is? Can we apply this knowledge to the way that we use WordPress and work with our business? And the answer is, I think, yes, we can. But you'll have to listen to the podcast episode to find out. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, today's discussion we're calling Personalities, Finding the Right Kind of Client. So we talked before, didn't we, Nathan, about niches, and we decided that we didn't have one.
Yes, yes, that's true. That's true.
We kind of did it. It was just that it was kind of nice to local people who had enough money for a website was about as far as we got with it.
Yeah. But I know that some people are very keen to get into niching and finding the exact target audience.
I know. Well, I think that was, it's still a big discussion area because I think most wise people say it's probably a good idea to do it. But I wanted to go back to the subject because I've rethought about it, because now previously, when I was talking about it, all the work kind of came to me and it was somebody else's business that was local. So my task was really to just find a way to accommodate these people who were, various different types of people, different types of businesses. So I never thought I needed a niche. What I needed to do was to accommodate people. But now I'm going to have to go after clients. So this is why I'm talking about it. Yeah, as always, I'm using this as therapy.
Well, what's interesting about this, though, is that you've got a really different angle on this, I think, than I've ever seen before. Now, no doubt somewhere on the internet, somebody will have covered this exact topic, but it was fresh to me. David often writes fairly lengthy notes for these discussion episodes so that he's aware of what he wants to talk about. And when I looked at these notes, a lot of it isn't common sense to me because I don't understand. Whereas you've got a background in psychology, which is a lot of what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, that's kind of just thrown in at the end there because there are a lot of personality tests. And it just made me think, because this is the way my thought processes were going, that if I'm going to try and get the right kind of client for me, I really need one that's going to match my personality, my approach, my values. And that might be kind of my way of niching. So maybe just recapping on where we went with niches, we saw some problems, didn't we, in the sense that we thought if you really tried to find a niche and didn't have one automatically, you could easily misjudge the kind of work or the budgets in that niche and end up with a problem. And there was one that really put me off. It was the idea that, if you say you decided you were going to be the people who made websites for hairdressers, you might just find that competitors might not want to go to the same website suppliers.
Yes.
So you might not want to go to the same person who did, your competitor's hairdressing site or whatever. And also there was, I think my issue with it was the idea of boredom, this idea that you'd be doing the same sort of stuff or be stuck with the same kind of work.
Yeah, I think they're all completely valid concerns, especially the one about clients potentially, looking at your portfolio of a dozen hairdressing websites or what have you and thinking, oh, okay. Are they going to find anything unique about me? The opposite, of course, is true. They might think this is perfect, but I can see that you might want to go somewhere for a fresh pair of eyes, shall we say.
Yeah. So really, I just wanted to talk about this kind of idea that we might just kind of focus, because I think we all do need to a certain degree, sort of focus on who we're working with when we do this business. So maybe the way to do it would be to look at our personality types and find out what it is that we like about working with other people. And because our personalities are more consistent perhaps than a niche might be, so you could get bored of a niche, but you're not likely to get bored of your own characteristics. They're likely to remain the same. So that was my thinking. Yeah. And the other thing about the niches that put me off as well, that if you picked a niche and then you thought that was fine, but you didn't have too much experience in it, you could just find that, as I've found before, in certain industries, there are a type of person and you might just find you don't like that kind of person.
That's a very good point. You might be running up against an industry where I don't know, it's completely typical to charge twice what it's worth or something like that. That's a silly example, but you might end up having a personality conflict, shall we say? By your core values are very different from the core values which are typically held by people in that niche. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. I've seen online often that certain industries, like we did some websites for furniture companies, but I looked at all the other furniture company websites as well, their competitors, and you can kind of see that they all go to Twitter and they're all not that interested in SEO. So, if you're a big fan of that, you probably wouldn't, want to go for furniture companies, even though I've done a few of those websites,
Yeah.
Anyway.
A terrible stereotype, but one which illustrates the point would be, in the UK at least anyway, we talk about second-hand car salesmen. And I'm not casting any aspersions, but the if you say that phrase, oh, he's like a second-hand car salesman, you are basically implying by that this person probably isn't wearing their morals too often, and they're prepared to kind of like just rip people off and make a fast buck, despite the fact that they know that this car is glued together and will fall apart when it's 5 meters off the forecourt. But it's not my problem, governor. You bought it, caveat emptor, and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? I mean, we did some sites for, there's still a lot that I manage, which are effectively for games, for seaside games, really. People who sell those kind of arcade games and all that kind of industry. We work for, because the first job I did was for manufacturers, and they are of a similar type of person. You know, it's fine if you're that kind of person, but the way that they talk to each other is a kind of guttural language. They will F and blind directly, you know. So you've got to be the right kind of personality if you were doing that as your kind of niche, you know.
It's fascinating, anyway, isn't it? No, but it's an interesting foray, just for a moment, and probably not something I'd ever even thought of. That the personality of the person who I'm building a website for might be a cause for me to decline, or potentially be a cause for, you know, going out and seeking more of these kind of people, because you just get on well, because your values are aligned and you seem to speak the same language.
Yeah, and I just thought some things I've realized for myself. So anyway, I started putting down some notes, and they were that we probably already know what we are like, you know, as people, and we could probably narrow down our choices a bit. So the first thing that I put down here was that if you love processes, order and record keeping, then you're probably the type of person who might just be right going after kind of government bodies, charities, universities, big, large bureaucratic organizations who value that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, not just value it, probably insist upon it. Everything's got to be documented and categorized. So yeah, good points. If you love order, you hate the chaos, and you like putting things into categories and boxing things off. Yeah, fascinating. Government, charities, and universities. Interesting you put charities in there. I don't have a great deal of experience with charities. How did they get lumped in there? Do they have the same sort of regulatory control?
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, all charities are different, but I'm thinking more the larger charities. But yeah, of course, I've done a few sites for them, but they come with certain regulations. They're worried about certain things, even if they don't necessarily adhere to them. They will probably be concerned about accessibility more than most businesses might be. That kind of stuff, and there'll be lots of other things that go with it. You know, that's the interesting thing that I kind of learned in the last couple of jobs that were offered by friends that they thought might be suited to me were from smaller charities. And I just thought, do you know what, that really helped me zone in on the fact that no, I don't want to work with these people, because I'm terrible when it comes to processes, orders, and record keeping. What I actually love is to just dive in and start something, you know?
Yeah, I do. I completely get it. So the idea that you've got to map everything out and have a very fixed, firm idea of exactly what's going to happen before you even start, that's not your process. You prefer the kind of make it up as you go along approach. So so move on. Don't take a particular client, because that the psychology of that kind of website requires you to behave in a way which is not natural to you necessarily.
Yeah,
fascinating.
And I just think, I mean, also, if you're a person who likes routines and you want to kind of fit your work into certain patterns, then maybe, you know, finding a niche or developing a type of website which is pretty similar each time you do it would surely allow you to be able to sort of map out how long it's going to take you to do that kind of work. So you might just be better, if you're that kind of person, to actually go for a niche where it's the same kind of website every time, even if that might, to me, sound really boring.
Okay, yeah. So what's the difference between, you mentioned earlier about, you know, government bodies, charities, universities might be well suited to somebody that loves processes. What's the difference between a process and a routine?
Oh, sorry. I meant just for your personal routine. So you like to say work from 9 to 5 or something in your
Oh, I
job.
see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So what I mean, I think, you might be able to just map out how long a project's going to go. I mean, there's no reason why you can't do it. I'm just really all I try is to come up with sort of areas where you might go for, because your personality type. So, most of the advice out there is about growing your agency, and you and I are not like that, are we? We're not into that.
No,
so much.
not really. No.
So, yeah, and it makes sense with our personality types. It certainly does with me. I realize I just don't like the processes that might command the bigger jobs. If you wanted sort of 25 grand per job upwards, you're going to need to go for big, large organizations, and they're likely to be bureaucratic. So when I think about it, my personality just doesn't suit going for those kind of bigger agency jobs.
Yes. And also, I suppose I think this is probably true to say, if your personality doesn't suit it, you're probably not going to enjoy the experience of doing it. And if you're not really enjoying the experience of doing it, you're more likely to do it badly.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, do you know what? I mean, I've learned, and this is where I made the mistake, I think, because I set up my business to accommodate everybody, and I thought care plans was the way forward, which I still do. And I thought, because we were getting tradespeople easily, and they don't worry too much about the websites, they were kind of constantly going to give me that reoccurring income. But what I've realized is what I really enjoy is the challenge, doing something different, jumping in. So I've gone for, so this is, I suppose I should avoid niches and I should go for startups, because that's the bit that really gets me excited, is the idea of doing something a little bit different from what I've done before.
So you like it when you've got a blank canvas and the client is doing something new, and you get the ability to be a little bit more artistic, shall we say, and you've got to really make it up for the first time because you've never come across this website, and that novelty that's inherent in that kind of a client appeals to you, and you enjoy doing those more.
Yeah, I mean, I've really learned, and the next thing I was saying, I love the psychology in things. So the digital marketing side of stuff is something I never really get into. I would love to do more on that side, but generally I'm building somebody a site because that's all they want. They're not interested in digital marketing. So I've realized through thinking about what I like, the psychology and the new challenges, I really need to move towards that. And so in a way, I've restricted myself, if I want that kind of work, to those people who are, in fact, the way I'm going to work with people, because I don't like to work in bureaucracies or large groups, I should be going for the startup solo entrepreneurs, I think. So, but I was just thinking, again, if you must be a certain type of person who likes working either with groups of people or alone. So if you really love the project management side of things and team working, then maybe again it's larger companies are for you.
Okay, so you don't mean by that work for a larger company, you mean go and find projects from larger companies?
Yeah, I mean, you and I are the same, aren't we? We had this sort of policy on the whole that was we just work with one person.
Yep.
Why do you do that?
So the organization could be any size, but I only work with the one person. I think it just comes down to the clarity of the whole thing, just keeping it simple. That one person gets to have all the arguments within the company, and then I end up hearing the outcome of all the arguments. They might, I mean, it can get trivial, can't it? But there might be a discussion about a particular color choice or a particular font choice or the use of images, and I don't really want to be involved in that discussion. I just want to here's the images, this is the font, these are the things we're going to have in the menu. It's been decided, and I'm the custodian of that knowledge, so I'm now passing it on to you. Can you implement it? That's it, really.
Yeah. Do you know? I think it's our personalities again, though, because if you think about it, the stuff I learned about organizing a web project was very much about the project management and getting in with teams, getting all of the stakeholders together, and going through those processes of mood boarding or setting up the architecture through group work with people. And both you and I skipped that, but I think if you love all of that kind of teamwork, project management stuff, you'd probably want to lead your organization that way because you love it, and then you'd probably want to find the kind of companies who would welcome that.
Yeah, and also I think if you were dealing with an organization and this was your strength, if you loved working with teams and you literally enjoyed the process of being in those discussions, I don't, so I just want to hear the end result. But if you want to get involved and discuss and put your opinion forward about why this font is better than that font, or why we should go for this color palette, or whatever, any aspect, and the funnel should look like this, then this would be perfect. You could probably end up giving your expert opinion much more easily and get what will be a better result. Whereas I'm kind of just, I give my opinion to the one person. They take that opinion, and I'm hoping that they're able to argue that case for me. So yes, I can see that this particularly has benefits, but it's just not something I've ever really got involved in because I've been stung a few times with, committees grinding to a halt because everybody can't agree.
Yeah. Do you know, and that's exactly it. I mean, I've worked for so long for a large government organization, so there's nothing more I hate than the idea that time and money is wasted on meetings. But you know what? The people who love those jobs, that's what they live for, really.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, nothing beats a good meeting. Yes.
No, but it brings everybody, as far as they're concerned, this is the only way to move an organization forward.
Absolutely.
Together.
Yeah.
And they love it, and I hate it. So
that is really interesting, though. Just drawing that out, that the fact that my personality has precluded me from doing that kind of work, from pushing myself into the organization and getting my opinion through. It will lead to a different outcome. The outcome from the website that I will build will be different to the outcome from somebody who it really wants to get in those meetings and tell their expert opinion to the client, so that they know that they've had their moment trying to persuade them. I bet it'd be chalk and cheese. I bet they'd look really different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was, for those people who I thought I liked isolation for my work, but it's probably not true. I like working one-to-one. But I mean, if you did, then probably, I don't know, I'm just guessing, making this stuff up, but you might be attracted then to doing white label work. So somebody else was bringing in the client stuff and you were actually just doing it, or you did PSD to web kind of work.
Yeah.
You're just translating stuff. So, yeah.
So the idea that you kind of like being insulated from the client, you don't like to necessarily interact with the client, which in a sense is what I'm doing by just having this one point of contact. I'm kind of insulating myself against most of the stuff flying around. But if you do white label work, you're not beholden to the client. You're beholden to the customer of the client, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and I think the PSD to web work sounded like it was ideal, because literally you can just, what you've got to replicate. You've seen it. There's no discussion. You just get on and start doing it. But I realize probably that sounds fantastic for a while, but for me, there's no long-term joy in that. So maybe you're the same. I don't know. Do you get a bit of a buzz doing the one-to-one with the project, so you can sort of bounce ideas off this one person? Or
it really does depend on the personality, and again, it comes down to that psychology. If I can think of lots of my clients who I have no trepidation picking up the phone and just beginning talking. It's completely fine. It's almost like we're buddies. But then the opposite is true. Sometimes that one-to-one, you've ended up, for some reason, the person in charge of it is just a different person to you. They behave differently, talk differently, probably have an entirely different kind of life to me, if you know what I mean. And that can be difficult because I've got nobody else to circumvent. I've got nobody else to go to. Whereas if I was dealing with a team in a boardroom meeting or in a meeting, you could kind of, well, for want of a better word, you could blank the person who you don't really get on with and move on to somebody else and try to have the conversation through them instead.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, I think there are different models as well. We've talked about this before. If you love autonomy, I think also you might be restricted in which types of industries or companies you work for then. It would depend on your standing. I mean, there are some agencies out there who say, you stay out, we design what it is, that's what we do. But on the whole, if you want autonomy, the sense that your ideas are going to go forward, you're probably going to have to kind of pick people that are going to be open to that.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
I do like a bit of autonomy. I do like to kind of keep things to myself a little bit, and just work on my own processes and things.
Do you get if you've had a great idea, do you get a bit upset if it's not taken on board?
I'm pretty good now at masking that. So I don't think I give it away with what I say or the tone of my voice, but I do feel a bit deflated sometimes. Yeah. And, especially with the advent of page builders, I find it a bit demoralizing when I've handed over a site and I go back a week later and I discover that lots of it's changed. I sort of think, I tried really hard with that.
Yeah.
That was much nicer before, but I've kind of had to get over that because, let's be honest, if I've given them access to the page builder, I have in effect said, do what you like. And it's their website. And so, that's fine. It is perfectly fine. It just sometimes feels like a small kick in the teeth.
Yeah, I think for me, it's when I've had, there's been a few clients that have come along and you just thought, do you know what? There's a real opportunity for them to promote themselves online. It's not necessarily anything to do with the website, but it's just about how they might just do more of the digital marketing. And you try and put this argument forth, and it just completely falls flat on them. And you just think, what a wasted, I'm so sure that they would get so much more business. So, I mean, I realized that and I love to do that stuff. So I'd like to be able to, I guess it's not autonomy as such. It's more the fact that somebody will listen to ideas. And I think in order to do that, startups seem like risky people to go for because they're probably not going to help me try and earn recurring income from care plans, because a lot of them are just going to pack it in and fail, aren't they? But I still think they might be right for me because they'll probably be the people who will be open to, unlike established business, to new ideas that might help them get a head start.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, I don't know. This is all about me now, isn't it? But
no, because you're the one that brought all these ideas up, and honestly, a lot of this stuff wouldn't have even occurred to me when I was reading your show notes. I was thinking, boy, David really has got a big level of thought about this. I'm far more of a blunt instrument, so I'm glad that you've brought it up, especially the psychological stuff, which no doubt we'll get onto.
Well, we could just talk about that now, couldn't we? We've just been I've done this test before. Now, I did psychology, but to be honest, it's more an academic thing, and I don't put too much store by personality testings, but it still is quite interesting. A lot of companies still employ this. So we were both looking at a website, which I'm sure Nathan will add the link, which is 16personalities.com, where you can do a test. And this test is an established psychology test from Myers and Briggs, and it talks about which of the 16 personality types you are. So we were both doing this, weren't we? And we came up with our personality types.
Yeah, I came out after filling out the test, which takes about 10 minutes or something like that. I came out as mediocre. Oh no, sorry, mediator.
Yes. I came out as advocate. I was
what was your one again?
Advocate.
Advocate. Now, I don't really understand what these are, but I guess regardless of what you understand from the label that you're given at the end, my personality type apparently is INFP-A//INFP/T, whatever that means. Anyway, it can be summarized in a word: mediator. I guess the point you're making potentially here is, if in some way you can find other people who are mediators, you're likely to succeed better with them. Is that how it even works? Or is it that you get on better with people who are not like you, or what?
Yeah, well, sort of. I mean, I think that would be ideal that you kind of match somebody very similar. But I just think by maybe just doing a test like this might just give you some idea about where your principles are, where you, everything sits well. Where it's kind of your gut feeling, isn't it? Help you, and then maybe the strengths and weaknesses of these different personality types might help you to decide what type of industries you might go for.
That's a very good point, because on a different website, you can, which is called verywellmind.com, you
Yes.
can then find the type that you are, and it gives this little bullet pointed list of your personality strengths and your personality weaknesses. Now, I don't agree with everything that it says, but a lot of it was quite interesting. It's like, oh yes, that really is me. I am that. I do display those characteristics, and just for somebody else to tell me what I'm like is fascinating, because it suddenly felt like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's intriguing. I hadn't really thought about myself in that way. Maybe I would be good at that thing as opposed to that thing. Maybe I am instinctively drawn to that thing and therefore would succeed at it more. It's fascinating.
Well, yeah, I think it was pretty. As soon as you said you're a mediator, it's like, yeah, that's right, because you are. No, but you are. You know, you can see the balance in kind of arguments. You're not, I don't know. You're not bullish in any way.
Yes, that I don't fall under the category of bigot, which is one of the. No, it isn't. That is not one I think that you can end up with.
What is it? It says about yours. So your strengths are that you're loyal and devoted, sensitive to feelings, caring and interested in others, works well alone, values close relationships, are good at seeing the big picture.
See, that the ones that hop out there for me. So let's make the assumption, firstly, that I answered the questions accurately, and that this is a true representation of what I like, my strengths, if you like. It's telling me I like to work, or that I work well alone. That's one what just immediately hops out to me, and that I'm good at seeing the big picture. That also hops out to me, is that they potentially have use in business. You know, I can work well alone. Yes, that's good. I can go off and do things all by myself, completely autonomously, and I can see the big picture. I'm not so sure if that's true sometimes, but nevertheless, that's a good thing to know about me. Maybe I can do that, and I have that capability. So, don't always assume that people are seeing the big picture when I'm not. Should we talk about your strengths? I'll read these out. So, well, first of all, what personality type did you come out as again?
Yeah, I was advocate.
The advocate, right? So your strengths are: you are sensitive to the needs of others, you are reserved, highly creative and artistic. Boom, that's a good one. Focused on the future, you value close, deep relationships, you enjoy thinking about the meaning of life, and you are idealistic. Do any of those hop out as like useful in your work?
Yeah, well, the last two are kind of almost like negatives. So the strength, strengths, because it's a lot of navel gazing. But I think it's similar to yours in the sense that focus on the future. So I mean, I guess this is what has come into the conclusion of. I like looking towards where you could go with these businesses. So when these people would come for websites, we can build your website. But what's really interesting is what you could do with this, your business online, and that's where I get frustrated. Because
but you see,
no one was interested in that.
I definitely don't have that. And I wouldn't be thinking in quite those terms. What I mean by that is that side of things wouldn't excite me in the same way that it would excite you. So if a particular client was really wanting to map out their future, you would be a shoo-in. You would be far better at doing this stuff because you'd want to sweat those details and sit down with them and talk it all through. Whereas to me, that would probably feature far less. Whereas according to my set of data, I'm much better at working alone. So that's fascinating. The other one on yours is the obviously highly creative and artistic. That's got to be a benefit, surely.
Yeah, well, maybe a requirement of the job, but I would dispute that. But I do like, again, it's the kind of creative, the idea of wanting to move things forward, come up with new ideas, focus on the future, those things on the strengths that I realize that is true of me. That's why I want to get involved in, I guess, the people's businesses and beyond the website, the ongoing digital marketing. And I just don't get to do that at all. So that it has really made me think about what I like doing as opposed to what's been coming in and how I've been able to deal with it. I find it really frustrating when a lot of the clients are quite slow moving. But we're in a lot of Facebook groups, and there's a lot of chat about how to onboard people and lots of processes that people have set up, which are so clever that I see, but they seem like something I would never do. And I've just come to the conclusion that this is probably just because we actually do need different types of clients. It's never going to work for me to kind of set up these routines. I always railed against it in my work.
What would be absolutely amazing, and of course this is never in the real world going to happen, it'd be amazing if you could somehow persuade clients, but potential prospects to go and fill out this survey and then happily give you the results. And if your personalities coincide, I suppose in a way that is what all of these onboarding processes to some extent are trying to do. They're trying to, whatever the questions that you've designed, you are trying to lead them down the path of discovering whether you and them can work together. So an example of that is my onboarding form is deliberately quite long. And what I'm trying to figure out is the person who's filling out, do they have the personality type? Now, it doesn't appear in here, so, this is not a technical word in any way, but do they have that endurance? Are they prepared to sit down and fill out that form? That's one thing I'm trying to do. So in a sense, I am in a very minor way trying to figure out what the other person's personality is like. And I ask a variety of questions, and I'm eliciting a response. And the end result is, I'm sure quite a few people will have arrived at that form, gone to it. Well, I know I've sent lots of people to that form and I never hear from them again. So in a way, I've weeded out the people whose personality dictated that they couldn't finish that.
Yes. Yeah, they to fill in your form, they really have to know that they want a website built, and they've got some kind of budget set aside for it, haven't they? Because they're going to put in some proper commitment in the first place. Yeah, they've got to spend a bit of time thinking about what they want to do. They've got to think about their rivals. They've got to think about what's lacking in the current website, what aspirations they've got, and so on. So yeah, you can't fill it out without intent, and you can't fill it out in a matter of moments. It has been filled out in a matter of moments, but that tells me everything I need to know. I've asked for them in certain forms. It's a big box, and the question is clearly leading them, because of the words I use, it's asking for as much detail as possible. And then they write 2 words, more sales or something. What do you want this website to become, or whatever. I can't remember the question. And if they just write more sales, well, that's telling me their personality is well, quick, move on to the next job, and you're probably not going to work with me. The beauty of this conversation and what you've brought to me today, this whole new understanding, is I didn't really think about it in those terms of personalities, and now I've got a bit more of an insight into it, which is absolutely fascinating. I'm really intrigued by all this. Yeah, I'm probably just stretching out a basic idea, but I'd certainly, yeah, and it's probably really not going to help anybody. But I don't know. I think I tried to think about niches and I couldn't get there. So this is my only way of thinking, how am I going to sort of go after the ideal client? I don't think it's going to make any difference to me in some ways. If somebody comes in as a tradesperson, just wants a website, doesn't want to think about the future, I can accommodate them. I set the business up like that. But in terms of, once I had this idea that perhaps then I can make content to reach the type of person I want. So I've kind of learned that quite the opposite to what I thought is probably who I'll work better with. More the startups, more the people who just want to dive in and start something. Maybe don't have an idea, but I've got the process to accommodate those. But I could make content to go after those type of people if I wanted to, through knowing that.
Yeah, and knowing a little bit about the psychology of them, especially if you're going after the people who share the same psychology as you. Presumably that makes it a little bit easier because you're going to speak the same language intuitively, and you don't have to go through the hoops of trying to fake what it is to be like that person. If you decide to go down this route. Of course, the big Achilles heel of this whole entire discussion is the fact that you can, unless for some reason they do go out and fill this survey and tell you what they are, you'll never know. You'll never know what kind of person this person is until you've actually had a lot of time spent with them, and then even then it's a best guess.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it. I mean, the best we can possibly do with personalities is know thyself, which is, I guess, what everybody has to be reminded all the time, don't they? When you're doing any activity, it's kind of, you have to get back to who you really are to know where you're going. And, and that's all this is really, isn't it? Just...
I remember when I was young, I may have told this anecdote before, but when I was young, I went to see a careers analyst, those people who, if you're not sure what you want to do, you go and see somebody, and they carry out a battery of psychological tests. So it's far more comprehensive than these 16 questions. And the result, I can't remember in terms of what they said I should do. I have a memory that they said, we're not sure. But what the piece of advice that they gave, which has always, I thought, stuck with me, was that maybe just do something that you instinctively enjoy, because you'll enjoy it, and therefore you'll want to do it, and therefore you're much more likely to succeed doing it. So, that's exactly what you just said about know thyself. If you know what it is that your personality type craves or enjoys, then you know what it is that you should be doing with your time and your life. So, yeah.
I think so. I think it's just a starting block. I'll probably regret this episode a few weeks down the line, thinking, I came to all the wrong conclusions. But yeah, it is just interesting, just thinking about this and what I like.
Yes, I completely agree. Just thinking about the psychology of what people are like. Of course, we could, if we wished, talk about the weaknesses of both of our personality types. I don't know if you want to get into that or not.
Let's do it.
Okay, so according to this, the weaknesses of my mediator personality type are that I can be overly idealistic. Okay, I tend to take everything personally. I do not. I'm difficult to get to know. Wow. Okay. I sometimes lose sight of the little things. Oh, there's no doubt that's true. Yeah, definitely. I can become unhinged by a minor detail where everybody else looks at me and goes, what? That's just not even important. And I can overlook the details. Oh, that's so bad. That's so bad. Website builder who overlooks details. Ouch.
But they don't seem that true of what I know of you. Actually, you've never seemed over idealistic, always quite grounded. So
yeah, maybe. I don't have any ideals.
Mind you, overlook details, because when we were doing this podcast, you were one of the few people that said, well, just put it out as it is.
Okay, right.
You weren't interested in the idea that we'd be chopping this up into little bits and making it all.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that's that's not a weakness necessarily. That's one of the strengths, isn't it? Because it just means, again, it's the other side of the big picture thing, isn't it? So
it's kind of the ship it quickly mentality, isn't it? Get it out there with all of its flaws, and then fiddle with it later. Yeah, I probably do that. Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you probably want. You need clients then who see the big picture then and don't want to get stuck
who
on the
also
details.
Are prepared to work with me to get the little mistakes ironed out. Yeah, that's a good point. You see, there is value in this. This is interesting.
We're just Emperor's New Clothes, I think, with this.
Yeah. Right, here we go. This is David Wormsley's weaknesses. Can be overly sensitive. Okay.
Again, not true.
Okay. Sometimes difficult to get to know. Well, you were really hard to get to know. I mean, it was like getting blood out of a stone. That's nonsense. That's not you at all. Really open. Maybe this can have overly high expectations.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I refuse to believe this of you, but I'm not sure whether you will or not. It says that you're stubborn. And it says that, okay. Oh, you are? Okay. Really? Are you really? You can.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've not seen that side of you. Maybe that points back to the earlier bit. Sometimes difficult to get to know. You just haven't revealed. You haven't opened up your inner stubborn to me yet. And the last one, which I think is probably the most important for us, is dislikes confrontation. So I wonder if that's, led you to decline work or step away from a job halfway through when you got a bit difficult.
Yeah, I want things to be nice all the time. You're like that though as well. But nice, stubborn though is just a silent stubbornness. I won't do something that I don't want to do.
Okay, you're like a mule.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that kind of stubborn. Not don't have much of an argument, but I won't be moved. But high expectations. That's the disappointment. It's expectations in other people, not of myself particularly.
Right. So we'd be a great blend, wouldn't we, if we were to ever work collaboratively on a website? Because I overlook details and you have high expectations. I can see this going really wrong. Oh, and you're stubborn.
We'd be fine, because you've got the bigger picture and I focus on the future. So I just I look at your bigger picture for the future. That's it. We'll get around it.
And I take everything personally. So, this is fascinating. I mean, obviously it's a stretch, like David said, to kind of imply that you can carry this stuff out. But just if you've got an interest in this sort of psychology, go to the website is 16. So it's the number 16. personalities.com. There's no hyphen or anything. 16personalities.com, and you can fill out the survey. It takes about 10 minutes, and it will give you a nice lengthy sort of templated report about what you're like, and also tell you about people who are like you. So this is fascinating. Apparently I'm like William Shakespeare, J.R. Tolkien, Bjork, Johnny Depp, Julia Roberts, Lisa Kudrow, Alicia Keys, and Frodo Baggins. Fascinating. So yeah, lovely subject, really interesting, and possibly just scratching the surface of a really interesting subject. Do you have anything more to add?
No, I think that's enough, don't you?
I think
we are really stretching it.
Yeah, well, that's our personality types, isn't it? Right, I'm gonna knock it on the head in that case. Thanks, David. That was fascinating. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was really fascinating. I certainly enjoyed chatting to David, who's got far more of a background in that than I have. Really interesting to see what the different personality types are and how that information maybe could lead us to modify or adapt our behaviour when dealing with clients. Potentially, maybe to calm things down or to speed things up, depending on what the requirement was. Absolutely fascinating. I hope that you enjoyed that. Please feel free to add comments if any of that struck you as interesting or noteworthy. We're very pleased to engage with you over on our Facebook group at wpbuilds.com/Facebook, and we publish this stuff to YouTube as well at wpbuilds.com/Facebook. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by WP and Up. 1 in 4 of us will be directly affected by mental health related illness. WP and Up supports and promotes positive mental health within the WordPress community. This is achieved through mentorship, events, training and counselling. Please help enable WP and Up by visiting wpandup.org/give. Together we can #pressforward. Okay, thanks for making the effort to get to the end of this week's podcast. I really appreciate it. Perhaps we'll see you back here next Thursday for another podcast. Maybe Monday you'll join us for our WordPress weekly news and possibly the live news that I mentioned earlier. And have a nice week if I don't speak to you before then. Bye-bye for now. Cheesy music coming in. Whoop, whoop, whoop.